Hello, today we will take a look at some agricultural cultivation methods as we begin to study specific technologies in applied ag technology and the ways that we've made agriculture more efficient. We want to look at the ways that we currently cultivate food. Some of them are more traditional, some of them are newer to the field. Let's start with traditional food crop cultivation. Usually, and throughout history, food crops have been raised outside, planted in soil. Their job is to harness the power and sunlight available naturally. It's very dependent on the climate and geography. What you can grow depends on where you live and the high and low temperature, as well as the length of your growing season. Traditional food crop cultivation is greatly affected by the available soil nutrition. And so, throughout history, as those soils have sometimes been depleted, if they're not well taken care of, we have also applied fertilizer. At different times, we've had to apply fertilizer in multiple methods depending on the crop, and it's very important that we consider that in traditional food crop cultivation because we're not very efficient with the yields if we don't. Currently, this type of food crop cultivation is the primary source of most of our crops. Most of our crops are grown in a warm place, um, primarily because they have a longer growing season and then shipped to the place that needs them. So, for example, in the middle of winter in Colorado, I can still go to the grocery store and buy oranges because they're cultivated somewhere in the right climate and then shipped to my local grocery store. There are some benefits to this cultivation method. In most situations, the sunlight is free, and so that is a harnessing of some power that's pretty important. In addition, many agriculturalists take very good care of the soil, and so the soil continues to share its nutrients that it has with the crops that we grow, and they continue to keep us healthy. There are some disadvantages to this method as well. One of them is the limiting factor of geography, what can be grown in which place. Another is that in some situations, the price of land is so great that it's very hard for the agriculturalist to afford to keep it in food production instead of selling it to have houses be built there. And so, anytime we lose farmland, traditional food crop cultivation becomes more and more endangered. Another type of cultivation that we're seeing become a little bit more popular all the time is called hydroponics. Hydroponics is when we grow plants in a nutrient rich solution. They are planted in a root medium, and this can be done in both commercial food production and also home food production. There are again challenges and benefits to this style. Less space is needed than in traditional cultivation. We can grow indoors if we need to, and we usually use less water because it's a closed system. Hydroponics can be grown year round in a greenhouse, and the producer can quite easily change the nutrient availability easily and quickly to those plants. Hydroponics is a little bit more feasible in urban areas than traditional production, primarily because it can be grown inside buildings if needed or in small spaces. Some of the challenges included in this type of production include the intensive management that is needed. In a hydroponic system, you have to be managing the pH of the water, what nutrients are available to the plant, as well as cleanliness to prevent different bacteria and fungus from growing. The application of light tends to be a little bit of a challenge as well, simply because um, oftentimes we're running it off of electricity and that costs money. We have higher energy costs oftentimes in hydroponics. And not all crops grow successfully in this situation. There are certain crops that lend themselves well to it. We've had high success with things like lettuce and strawberries and tomatoes, but some crops are just not really built for this cultivation method. This is an example of a current commercial greenhouse that uses Hydroponics. This is Stuppy Greenhouse in Missouri. It is a greenhouse that commercially grows lettuce, and you can see the different varieties planted. This type of cultivation, the water runs in kind of that little gutter shaped piece, and you can see that it's closed off to keep the water clean and to also prevent different algae from growing, and then circulated throughout. It's kept in a temperature controlled greenhouse in this situation. Another type of cultivation method is called aeroponics. Aeroponic systems use nothing more than a nutrient laden mist. So rather than hiding the roots or protecting them, however you want to say it, with a growing medium, the roots are actually left to dangle in kind of a specialty type container where they're periodically misted with water, and the water has the nutrients that the plant needs in it. So you can see some similarities to hydroponics, a little bit different because we're just misting those roots, and that can be done in a variety of different setups. The benefits to this system are that the roots have a really great access to oxygen, and that leads actually to healthier plants and that they can grow at their own rate. We see that the operator can have very great control over nutrient application, and in addition, it can be used most effectively indoors. Now, that being able to be used indoors can be both a benefit and a challenge. Because it's indoors, it often requires grow lights as opposed to using the sun, and the equipment is quite specialized, and so the startup costs are pretty expensive. Here's an example of a commercial greenhouse that uses aeroponics. This is called La Serra, and I actually believe this one is in Europe, in England, and they're growing cherry tomatoes here. You can see they have a pretty good crop of them. They have done a series of tests to see which varieties of tomatoes grow best there, and are finding great results of the sustainability. One last style I want to expose you to is called aquaponics. Aquaponics is a closed loop system where we combine fish and vegetables in order to utilize the benefits of both for each other. So you can see at the picture on the left that this is kind of a circular piece, but that the plants are floating in water and the roots grow down into water where there are also fish. And so as the fish poop, the water circulates and takes that waste up and actually fertilizes the root mass with it. Fish poop is high in nitrogen, which is one of the most important nutrients for a plant to have. The picture on the bottom right, you can see a tiny little aquaponics system that somebody has in their home. That's very popular. It works very well to just grow um, a few little herbs on the top of a goldfish tank or a betta fish tank. And in the top right, you see more of a commercial operation of a similar aquaponics system. The benefits of aquaponics include utilizing fish and the waste that comes from them, being able to have the plants consume some of that waste means that we have less toxic runoff from both aquaculture situations and from plant fertilizer use. In a system like this, you can harvest both plants and fish from the gardens, and it can be scaled up to a rather large facility or scaled down. The challenges are very similar to those we find in hydroponics. You need a temperature controlled space that also has a long growing system that oftentimes equates to indoors. The lighting can be done naturally, but oftentimes is done artificially. And we have to keep the system balanced so that both the plants and the fish are healthy. We don't want to have excess waste that the plants can't utilize in time, but we also don't want to have not enough waste. So there's a very detailed balancing act between the number of fish and the number of plants. By nature of this system, they are almost always organic, simply to make sure they're not harming the fish with any chemicals. All of these three systems are very important in the agriculture industry and gaining importance all the time. We're starting to see specialized places for all of these in more and more cities. This perhaps can be a way that urban agriculture helps produce some food more local to the populations. Here are three ideas for places that you can advance your knowledge, and I look forward to hearing about your adventures building the small hydroponics system out of a water bottle and watching these videos. Have a great day.